Trump sitting down with Joe Rogan over the weekend. Incredible. 3 hours. 3 hours long. Trump said, Kamala couldn't do it.
One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to.
I will talk to her like a human being. I would try to have a conversation with her. If she did this kind of an interview
with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I'd just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being.
I love the way Joe Rogan tries to keep it PC. He's like, listen, I'm still trying to get the interview. It's like, so I can't.
Yeah, it's funny when Joe Rogan's keeping it PC.
He's like, I can't go but so hard on Kamala Harris, But
she'd be laying on the floor.
She'd be laying on the floor. Could you imagine? I hope she does. It'd be a total mess. It'd be a total mess.
So good.
There was so many funny moments like that during the interview with Joe Rogan. But I think some of the best stuff was just kind of hearing him talk. Again, the way Rogan said he wanted to hear Kamala talk, you heard that from Trump, talking like a human being. Though this wouldn't be the first time you've heard it from Trump, I think that we kind of have grown to expect that from Trump, that you're going to get real, authentic reaction and opinion from him. We don't get those cookie-cutter politician answers. But the topic turned to the polls. And Donald Trump said, let me tell you about the polls.
You know how polls are done? I'm going to get myself in trouble, but so I really don't believe too much in them. So
2016 taught a lot of people about the ineffective.
Well, they were very ineffective because I thought I was doing well. I'd go to a place and I'd have 30, 40,000 people. Hillary would go, they have 500 people, and they tell me I'm going to lose. I said, why am I going to lose? I had 40,000 people. She had 200 people. But, I have a theory. These pollsters, they charge you a lot of money, too. They charge you $500,000 to do some stupid poll, and they interview like 251 people. I don't think they interview them in many cases. I don't want to get myself in too much trouble.
You think it's bullshit?
No, I think they sit there, they make a deal, they get $500,000, and they say, Trump's leading 51-49. They announce it, and everybody says, oh.
I love it. He's like, they're BS. Like, people are making a lot of money off these polls. And then they say Trump is leading. Oh. I think that might have been my favorite line.
And everybody says, oh. Do you understand? I think in a lot. Look, I'm a very common sense person. I think that they probably don't always poll. Some of them probably never poll. What's the difference between 49 to 51 and 47.5?
Well, it's also a tiny percentage of the population. I don't think it's representative of the overall population. I just don't think
I don't know of one person in my whole life that ever got called by a pollster.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah, I've been called once by a pollster. Once. And they were like, this is what killed me. This was this election season. I got a call. Hey, we're doing a poll. Perfect. Count me in. They said, does anybody at your household work in TV, radio, or anything like that? And I said, yes. Gotta go. I was like, darn. It's like, all right, well, if you call me back, I'm going to lie next time. I just wanted to get the answer, like the questions, what kind of questions are they asking? So I'm interested in that. And I think Trump may have some points on polls being BS. I think you can point to history and prove that polls are BS. But the conversation then goes to the experience walking into the White House. What was it like walking into the White House your first time?
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this it was really a hallowed place to me. It was surreal. It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience. And then with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes, your place where you stay. And I was doing I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. Nobody has ever been treated that way. And you see that. You see where in the Washington Post very early on they said, well, now the impeachment stuff starts. And it did. It literally started from the beginning. So I had survival and run the nation. I had a combination. Most people don't have the survival. They get in.
No, it's interesting that's his mindset. survival and run the nation. And listen, it was a good mindset to have because a lot of people were very, very unhappy that Donald Trump was in there. And he talks about the process of appointing people in 2016, right? How you get in there and you have to make all these appointments. And, he's doing that surrounded by people that don't like him. But he talks about the process, how many people he has to appoint.
How many appointments did you have to make?
Well, you have actually 10,000 appointments. Now, they're different. You have big ones, and then they appoint 100 people and 200 people. But the president really is involved with approximately 10,000 appointments. So you'll appoint a Secretary of State, and he or she will appoint a lot of people. So it's a lot. But in terms of major ones, you probably have like 100, but they're big ones. Treasury, state, military.
And how did you know who to appoint?
Well, I didn't. I had no experience. You have to understand, Joe.
So
I was there 17 times in Washington, and I never stayed over. According to the press, which I think is probably right, over the years, I was only there 17 times. I never stayed over. So now I'm sitting there, I'm saying, this place is gorgeous, but, I don't know anybody.
So he gets in there. He's got all these appointments to make, and he doesn't know anybody. And I think one of the things that we could all criticize Donald Trump on with his first administration was putting the wrong people in the wrong positions. And names come to mind like John Bolton, right? Everybody understands that John Bolton is a neocon and loves war. Trump talked about John Bolton and how he got his gig.
The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people got bad advice.
Yeah, you're reading about them a little bit today. A guy like Kelly, who was a bully, but a weak person. You know more about bullies than anybody probably around because you deal in a certain sport where the bullies are exposed very quickly.
Yeah.
But he's bad. Bolton was an idiot, but he was great for me because I'd go in with a guy like a John Bolton. John Bolton. A friend of mine called me up. I was picking Bolton, and he's a very smart guy. His name is Phil Ruffin. He's a very rich guy from Las Vegas. He's a great card player. He doesn't play cards, but he's a great player. He's just a natural. Got poker sense, right? The good old poker sense. And Phil Ruffin is a very, very wise kind of a guy, and one of the richest people around, and has had great success and understands people. So it was in that I was picking Bolton, or I picked Bolton. He called up. He said, "Don't pick him. Why? He's a bad guy." Now, he wasn't in politics at all. He's in various businesses. He said, "He's a bad guy. It always works out bad with that guy." And I said, "Oh man, I wish you told me this 2 weeks ago. I already hired him. He's here," and he was right. But he was good in a certain way. He's a nut job, and every time I had to deal with a country, when they saw this whack job standing behind me, they said, "Oh, man, Trump's going to go to war with us." He was with Bush when they went stupidly into the Middle East. They should have never done it. I used to say it as a civilian. So I always got more publicity than other.
So he's talking about the appointing the wrong people. And I love that he's looking at his past presidential term with that kind of clear view, right? And he's accepting what he's done that has been an error and how he's going to change that. And I want to point out, they are changing the appointment process, okay? RFK was talking over the weekend, and he made the statement that Trump is actually privately funding his own transition team.
Donald Trump specifically about this, and he said to me, I said, "Look, the last time you were in there, you put John Bolton in charge of NSA and Mike Pompeo in charge of the CIA and the State Department, and you put an oil guy, in charge of Department of Interior, a coal guy in charge of EPA, and a telecom lobbyist in charge of FCC, and pharma lobbyist as head of HHS and FDA, Scott Gottlieb." And he said, here's the difference. He said, "When I got in last time, I had no idea how to govern. And I got surrounded by donors and corporate people who said, you appoint this guy and appoint that guy. And he said, I appointed a lot of bad people. Now, I was listening this morning to this extraordinary interview that Donald Trump did with Joe Rogan yesterday. And he said during that interview, he talked specifically about John Bolton. He said, a donor got me to appoint him. And he said, he's a great guy. He turned out, and this is what he said. He said, he's a really bad guy. And he said, this time, I'm not going to do that. He told us that. And what he did, he didn't just promise that, but he did something no other president's done before. Normally, the transition team is not created until November 6th because GAO, the General Accounting Office, pays for all the costs of the transition team. Trump said, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm not going to do it their way. I'm going to start my own transition team 3 months early. And he got private donors.
The change is huge, right? You get that. Normally, you don't start your transition team until after the election. Trump said, no, we're starting way before then. And what that's going to enable them to do is hit the ground running with the right people. And Tulsi Gabbard put it this way, it's also going to stop the Democrats and Joe Biden's Government Accountability Office from being able to spy on Trump's transition team. I love this from Tulsi Gabbard. Her explaining the huge difference in Trump having this team ready to go right now.
I don't know if you've seen some of the headlines, Bobby, but over the last few days, there have been some articles written by the mainstream media talking about members, Democrats in Congress and others in the Biden administration who are expressing their grave concern about the fact that President Trump is doing something that has not been done before in what Bobby just talked about, that he has a privately funded transition team that is already getting to work. And they're like, well, how come he's not using taxpayer dollars for this and going through the Government Accountability Office? Something is very wrong here. Well, we should all have hope and how freaked out they are, because we're not allowing Joe Biden's Government Accountability Office to control President Trump's transition team. But this is what we're talking about. They're freaking out because they can't place their moles within the transition team to try to figure out what Donald Trump is doing so that they can spin up their media propaganda machines and try to preempt and undermine the work that we are doing to bring great patriots together to actually fix the government.
I don't know about you, but this gives me a lot of hope and a lot of excitement when you think about what that means and how they're going to hit the ground running if Trump wins. It's going to be historic. And the way they're doing it right now is already different than how they've done it in years past. And I really do appreciate Trump understanding the failures of that first term and not being willing to make the same mistakes again. I think that is massive, absolutely massive.